excited to see everybody in a few weeks. Tyler and Tempe and everybody.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Yeah, I think so. And we get to play Outward Realms too, which is super fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that quite a bit. I will be receiving one very large Outward Realms delivery in the near future.
Hey, there's Mitch. I cannot hear you, Mitch.
How about now?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, it's just the wrong microphone input, as usual.
So, Mitch, basically what I want to do is we'll have 3 sections. You'll talk about about how Grey Knights are doing and what you did and how your list worked and your tournament experience. Chuck will talk about what's going on with orcs, with the new orc rules and stuff. I'll talk about what's going on with Tyranids and about how they did at whatchamacallit, Austin. And I'll also talk about Thick City, since Drukari has pivoted kind of abruptly to something amazing. So that was my thought. We'll just talk about the 4 factions that are at the top of the game right now, and between the 3 of us, we'll just have a conversation about each one of them. But it gives you guys an opportunity to talk about your games as well, because, like, Mitch, you had Grey Knights in your list, and Chuck, you played Orcs. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Does that seem good?
I mean, so are we? So we're not doing the traditional format where we just kind of hit our games where our losses were and like how our event went. We're gonna.
I think you can totally do that as part of talking about Grey Knights. I think it can be part of the same section if you want. I personally don't want to talk about all 10 games between the 2 of you.
Oh, I had no intention.
But I know you want to talk about 2 of them.
Yeah.
We can do that first and then talk about the different factions. I don't care how we do it. It's either way. I just thought you would. Yeah, I thought you would just naturally, while talking about Grey Knights, you'd be like, "And I took Grey Knights and Custodes to this thing, and here's how it went, and here's what my games were like." I just figured it would blend in, but it doesn't matter to me how we format it.
Well, that's fine. I was just curious. There we go. Oh, that's what happened. Okay. Yeah, no, I that's fine. I want to definitely hit on, like, there was some really interesting stuff. I don't have a lot of thoughts on Grey Knights because, like, my list doesn't really play like Grey Knights.
Okay.
Like in a lot of senses, it just, like, what Grey Knights do, they do really well. But I don't have that. Like, my secondary game, everything is different.
Okay.
And we can highlight, like, what Grey Knights are doing, and how we need to have better balanced faction secondaries. That can be kind of a jumping off point. But because, like, that's the thing with Grey Knights right now, is because of their psychic secondary, they have, like, a guaranteed 15, and it completely changes how they play in the whole conversation around them. We can go into that.
Okay.
That'd be where I'd tack it from, I think.
Okay. Well, why don't we start with the tournament, and then we'll talk about the meta. That way it'll be more like what we normally do. Okay. Are you guys ready?
Sure.
All right.
Almost.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah.
Is there anybody in the chat to tell us they can actually hear us?
Yeah, Generalissimo friend.
All right.
I've never heard of him.
Sounds good to me. He might be trolling us, I don't know, but maybe he means it. Welcome to Best in Faction,
A podcast about competitive Warhammer 40k.
I'm Colin.
I'm Mitch.
And I'm Chuck.
And we are back for episode 98, which is a little bit insane.
That's quite a few.
It's certainly 10 times as many as far as I get with any other project I do. But Stephanie and I were joking that if it was really my project, we would have stopped at 90 and just, there we go, 90% of the way, 100, good enough. Anywho, so we are going to do something special for 100th episode. I'm currently planning it. I don't know what to tell you guys, but there's going to be something special for it. I wanted to do an in-person thing at Mary Sloneshmith's. Because of COVID, I just don't feel great about that. I wanted to record it at LVO with a live audience. Because of COVID, I just don't feel great about that either. So, we will figure out what's going to happen for the 100th episode, but it will be some sort of spectacle. Also news, just a reminder that our smaller but also awesome winter charity streaming event is in the first weekend of January. I believe it's the 7th and 8th. Someone will probably check that, but I'm pretty sure it's the 7th and the 8th. It'll be Friday night to Sunday night, marathon stream. We're going to do one stream that bounces around between 3 tables rather than doing 3 individual streams for this event. That'll make it easier for us to manage content during the night without you guys wondering where we're at. I believe. What's that, Chuck?
8th and 9th.
8th and 9th, thank you. So it starts on Friday the 7th. That's probably why I remember the number the 7th, because it's the Friday.
Yeah, that's when we'll start actually doing things.
Yeah. So we'll start at 2 o'clock on Friday, and we'll go to roughly that time on Sunday. So we're going to do what's going to be called the Best in the Pacific Northwest GT.
So,
yes, Mitch?
There is also the LVO Prep GT is the same weekend for Jason Bird. So that is something we'll have to consider for local scheduling.
Okay. We will have to figure that out. I've already invited everybody, so...
No, I know. No, I just found it. I was literally, hey, live on air kind of thing. So
yeah.
So we can figure that out.
I will figure that out. Anyways, I know how to reach him. So, Hammer Out Cancer, we are going to do what we're going to call the Best in the Pacific Northwest GT. And it is going to be on stream, and it's going to end with the winner of that game battling the winner of last year's tournament, which is me, for the championship belt, which I am ordering. And then they will take that belt home if they defeat me, and then they will bring it back and they will defend their title at next year's. So we'll start kind of a tradition here. And I'm inviting all of the best players that we know from the area to kind of make it real. We're going to invite the best guys from Portland. I don't know if we'll get any of the Canadians. It's a little bit of a hassle for them to come, to be perfectly honest. Alex came down for a tournament. Alex McDougall came down for a tournament. Was that last weekend, guys? Yeah, last weekend. And it was a pain in the neck for him to get home. So I don't know if we'll get any of the Canadians, but we'll get certainly the Washingtonians and certainly the Oregonians, and also a couple of our California friends are going to come up for that as well.
Who knows? Maybe some Idahoans.
Yeah, maybe some Idahoans. That's certainly the worst of the 3 names, is the Idahoans.
I know, that's why I had to work it in there.
Okay, fair enough. So that's going to be Hammer Out Cancer. It's going to be specifically raising money for cancer research this year. We'll have things to give away. It's going to be all the normal stuff that you guys expect from us. And that'll be nonstop streaming on that weekend. So look forward to that. I'm sorry that I'm not farther along in the planning. I know it's literally 6 or 7 weeks from now. There's a lot going on for me. But we'll get there. Probably in the next couple weeks, all of that stuff will be figured out. And you guys will see all of it. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. There's a lot going on in 40K right now. Chuck and Mitch went to a GT last weekend. So we want to talk about that. We also want to talk about the changes to the game that happened, because they're significant, and we kind of have a different S tier than we did before, and so each of us has some expertise in an army that's in the top of Pac Plus or into S, and so we're going to talk about in detail kind of what we think of what's happening with Grey Knights, Orcs, Drukhari, and Tyranids. So we're going to do that as well.
2 armies in that ranking, Colin.
What's that?
Nothing. I was just giving you shit for having 2 armies that are S tier or Pac Plus.
Yeah, I don't know that Orcs are S tier right now, but we're going to include them in the conversation anyways. Okay.
They'll include themselves.
Exactly. So, in the interest of this not going on forever, we're going to do the GT in a quicker format than we normally do. Each of them is going to talk about a couple of their games in more detail like we normally do, and then kind of breeze through the other ones. Let's have Mitch go first. So, GT in Bellingham, what'd you take?
Sure. So this was the GGGT General's Gambit at Dark Tower Games. JT was the head TO. And I brought my Dread Knight dance party. So I brought 4 Dread Knights, all Prescient Brethren, 1 hammer on my Grandmaster, and he had the 3-up invo and the teleport. And then all of my Dread Knights, my normal Dread Knights were swords, and then all the guns, all the teleporters, everything you'd expect. And then from there, I brought my 3 Telemon with 1 big gun and 1 fist, my Shield Captain with Heroic Intervention and Redeploy, and then my the new edition, which is the Scion Squad, rocking 4 squads of Scions and a Primaris Psyker. His job was to just hang out with Telemon and then do the Psychic Primary in the middle if I ever need it. And that was really all he did. And that was the whole list. Oh, and Shadow Keepers, obviously, for the Custodes, and Iotan Gorgons for the Scions, so that I could deep strike within 5 inches, because they were Rod Monkey Squads 1 through 4 was their names.
That's great.
So
who did you play first?
Yeah. I was really good. I kept all of my score sheets. I took really good notes of everything, and then I left all of those at my wood shop, so I couldn't use them today.
Mm-hmm. That sounds right.
But yeah, so I won't remember everyone's secondaries and stuff, but I do have the pairings here, so I can get all that right. My first game was against Hank, a fellow team member, someone who had been rocking AdMech, and then had just made the jump to Grey Knights, and who I had actually sold a bunch of Dread Knights to, so I got to play against my own boys. That was fun. But he was rocking...
I sold you those.
Yeah. He was rocking 5 Dread Knights, 2 Grandmasters, 3 regular, a Rhino, I think, and then 3 Strikes and 3 Interceptor squads. And then the Psychic Librarian and the Tech Marine. I think that was pretty much the whole list. So the table we were playing on, this was player place terrain for the whole tournament. Obviously, we didn't alternate formats. But the terrain we had in Hammer and Anvil was such that we could both hide the entirety of our armies. And when we revealed our secondaries, we were basically both able to do the math. And it was like, well, if Hank does nothing, he wins by 2. So... at that point, the initiative is on me to try and make something happen to change that differential. I tried to do so. I was not able to make any charges or really connect with any of my kind of Hail Mary plays and stuff. Because I had room to shunt and deep strike into him, because he was obviously hiding everything to deny me the ability to start pruning his forces. But if I didn't connect with the charge, I wasn't going to get enough of a trade for the Dread Knights I was sending over there. So, and the other problem is because he was pure Grey Knights, he actually is like one of the only factions that can just ace a Telemon when they want to, because of the amount of mortal wounds they can put out. So I couldn't just send like the Steiner Scout Lance into them, because they would pick up a Telemon a turn. Just one, but that's really impressive. So
how many more do you need to pick up?
Yeah.
If somebody says I pick up 2 a turn, I have questions.
Yeah, that's terrifying. But so I ended up losing that game by 6 points instead of 2 points because of the plays I made. A Telemon ended up dying because, like I said, he can ace them, and so that was a 5-point swing for my While We Stands. And so but I also was able to get a couple extra points on my plays, so that ended up at a 6-point differential. Great game, like as far as it could be, but just not a lot there to learn. It was just an unfortunate situation where we could both effectively have 3 objectives in our deployment zones completely hidden and beyond them, and he had OBSEC far more than I did, so I could not push him off. Mm-hmm. So moving on from there, I played Imperial Knights. And that was against Alfred Molitor. And he was rocking a Archeon, a Castellan, the Princeptor or whatever, and then a few of the Armiger chassis. And basically, I tabled him in like 3 turns, I think. It was just I have models that have very similar profiles but better, and I have invols all the time and a 2-up armor save. And then I can teleport and move around, and then the Telemon just pick up knights whenever they want. So it was a poor matchup that way. He did, however, ace a Dread Knight in Overwatch with the Archeon, which was pretty impressive. So that was pretty cool. So moving on from there, I played Mason Moore, a longtime local player. Orcs have always been his go-to army. He hadn't played for the last half of 8th and all of 9th, I think, right around there, something like that. And he was just coming back in to play the Orc Codex. He was running 2 giant Squigoth and a Gorkanaut, and then stuff.
Okay. Not a lot of stuff. No, that's some beefy boys.
Yeah. And I didn't realize they did 3 plus D3 damage in close combat, but it didn't matter because I killed all 3 super heavies in 2 turns. And it was the end of the day, and he was just at that point he was just like, cool, no problem. He just wanted to get on his drive home because we were having that torrential rainstorm that ended up in landslides a couple days later and stuff. So he was fine for an early drive. So the next day we start getting into my really, really tight games. I had 2 amazing matches. So the final score on the last 2 were 97-20 and 92-50. So it's very, very decisive wins. I move on and I face Grey Knights again. This is Noah Bedome. He is playing something very, very similar to Hank's. I think that there are just a very few tweaks there. We had an incredibly intense game going back and forth. This was a 2-point game. I won by 2. We were playing on the clock. I had not played on a clock in quite a while, and I ended up burning probably about 10 minutes of my time on his turn. And so when we got to the end of the game, we had like 15 minutes left in the round. And we were at the end of turn 4. Noah at this point had 2 ties. And we did the math, and on turn 4, we would tie. And so I'm like, listen, dude, I think you have it. And we basically identified that it was 1 charge that determined whether or not he won. And he rolled it and then re-rolled it with his CP and was unable to connect. And that was really the game. But phenomenal, really tight game we were able to play. It's one of those games where you can get like 5 different decisions, where it could have gone a different way. And it was really, really tactical. And I could go into a lot of the detail, but basically what it came down to is we were playing on a Dawn of War mission, and I decided I didn't like that. He deployed more heavy to one side than the other, so I set myself up to basically pivot it and turn it into Hammer and Anvil, because there was a very large ruin in the middle that I could use to limit his firing range, lanes, because he has 30 inches on his Dread Knights. I have 24 because I am not running pure Grey Knights. I can't have tides to get me plus 6-inch range. So by doing that, I control all of his fire lanes for where he can really come at me and connect. And that allowed me to leverage the Telemon and kind of put them forward, and then use the Dread Knights as basically like suicide, just send them in. That it's the known cost, but the Telemon will carry me through on whatever push I'm doing. So at the end of it, everything would die but the Telemon. What the game actually really came down to when we figured this out was on turn 1, one of my Dread Knights took the entire shooting phase of his army and took like 2 wounds. Because it was in a forest, it had a -1 to hit, and that made a huge difference in the math on what happened. And then I just rolled a little bit hot on 4-ups, and before you know it, I have an extra Dread Knight I wasn't counting on going second, and that made all the difference for being able to go through. So I think the number one thing I took away from this game is forests can win you games if you just use them correctly. And with player placed terrain, I put them in a place where I knew I had a channel to hide 2 Dread Knights or 3 Telemon in there, and that was the correct move, and that made a huge difference in what I was able to execute on. So the last game was against Alexander Pina, and he was rocking Death Guard, and this was another game that was like a 2-point winner, something to that effect. And to give you an idea,
so you won by 4.
that there was a miscalculation in the score he realized later, so it was actually 2.
Okay.
I don't want to give him credit for that. But anyway, it was if he had deployed one of his plague tanks half an inch to the right, he would have been able to fire on one of the guard squads I had to put out to be able to start getting my rods, and it would have changed the course of the game, because it was at that point it would have been a 4-point swing. So there was a lot of it was just over and over and over again. There was decision after decision where he was making all the right plays, and I was trying to counter that, and it just eked out in my favor overall. Basically, it came down to his the Telemon saved my butt, but it really came down to I took the secondary for the psychic action in the middle of the table, and I used my Primaris Psyker to get that for 3 turns, 3 turns, and I forgot to do it on the last turn, which if he had made 1 or 2 charges or a couple things go differently, that would have cost me the game. And he did point that out to me after the fact, that hey, dude, you left some stuff on the table because my Primaris Psyker had died, but I could have done it with a Dread Knight, and I just neglected to do that. So really, really tight technical game. Both games were just phenomenal, and I'm talking to my opponents afterwards, and they're like, "Oh, I could have done this, or I could have done that," and every single decision mattered, and that's kind of what I want out of a war game, is that I felt like all of the participation, the helmsmanship, the generalship, whatever you want to call it, was what was making the difference on who won that outcome. So it was a really, really great tournament JT put on, and everyone at Dark Tower. It was just really, really well done. It was super smooth. Any rules questions or any sort of conflict was handled really quickly and easily, and yeah, just nothing but a really, really positive experience. And it was very cool to see how different the meta was with the quarterly update that we're hopefully going to be seeing.
Yeah. Cool. What would you do? Would you take anything different?
So it's hard. The Primaris Psyker is the only thing I'm waffling on. I would in Hank's game, I have a play available to me if I have a officer for move, because now one officer can send all 4 squads out, and so that can be really useful for trying to steal objectives from people. But I also only won the last game because I had the Primaris Psyker, so it's very hard to decide whether or not could I have picked up that slack and just used a cast from one of the Dread Knights. I tend to value those casts for other things, and I tend to want to be in more offensive positions. I don't want to have to anchor them somewhere they don't want to be. So it's whereas the Primaris Psyker, the Telemon, always want to be in the middle, because then they can shoot everything. So him hanging out there made a lot of sense, but we'll have to see. I'm not sure yet.
Fair enough. Mr. Chuck, what do you take to the GT?
So they decided we're going to take in the quarterly update, and what they also allowed was the most recent Octarius book, which had the Blood Axes and the Speed Freaks. When I first got into Orcs, I got in when they introduced Speed Freaks back in 3rd edition, and they've been my love the entire time. So I was like, I absolutely have to play this. I have to play it now. Let me dig around in my closet and pull out 2,000 points of Speed Freaks. So I'm playing Evil Sun Speed Freaks. I brought a War Boss on bike. He's got the Faster Than Use and the redder paint. The Faster Than Use is the one where I can pick a core unit and it can advance and charge. Actually, I should, real quick, I'm going to go over Speed Freaks because it's brand new. People may not recognize what it does. It gives everything in your army that is a Speed Freak. So all your War Bikes, Buggies, and Death Coptus, they don't get the Evil Sun's bonus, the extra movement anymore. They get the ability to advance and shoot normally. If they advance, they get a 5+ invuln save. The rest of the time, they get a 6+ invuln save. They get +1 attack on the charge. And I'm sure I'm missing something else they get. But it's this long list of benefits. And really what it comes down to is you end up driving your vehicles at top speed in every direction, shooting constantly. So I brought that War Boss. Having the Faster Than Use means that I can pick one of the War Bike units and I can say, you're going to advance, you're going to move 20 inches, you're going to shoot normally, and then you're going to charge into something. That creates basically waves that hit my opponent's army and holds it back. And then I brought 3 Rekka trucks with that in one squad, because You can't put them in multiple squads anymore. A squad of 6 Def Coptas and a squad of 5 Def Coptas. And then I brought a gun wagon with a kill cannon. It's got the Booma Boys and the Booma upgrades. So that's a 2d6 strength 8 AP3 2 damage shot gun on top that's sitting on 4s. And then a Bonebreaker wagon as well. It's not very many things. And the other thing that the list does is it prevents you from having any infantry whatsoever. You can only have wagons, planes, and things that are speed freaks. So the number of secondary objectives is very, very low. That will play into all of my games.
Lemon is asking 5++ when you move more than 12?
When you advance.
Okay.
I don't think you technically have to move more than a millimeter and call it an advance, but that's been ruled many different ways many times. For me, I'll go all 20 inches. It's great every time. My first game was into Custodes. My opponent was on his second game with Custodes in his first tournament ever. But he did a pretty good job of it. He brought Trajan, the shield captain, on bike with all of the rerollable charges and really difficult to kill. A squad of 3 Aquilons. 2 of the the dreadnoughts with the spears, and 3 of them with the sword and shields. 3 custodians with the Magnists. You're gonna have to help me out here, Mitch. What is this fast attack? Oh, it must be his bikers. Mitch is not here.
I'm sorry, I was muted.
A squad of 3 bikers.
The bikes are fast attack, yeah.
Yeah, he had a squad of 3 bikers, and then he had 1 Telemon. He rushed me, and I just sort of drove up and opened fire. This is the first time I'd actually shot my list at all. I was able to chew through 1 dread mostly with the def guns from the bikers. Had I understood how much damage they were going to do, I would have maneuvered it so that all the bikers could have engaged that, and they would have done a lot more. And then used the rockets to shoot through one of the spear dreads, and then almost killed the Dawn Eagle jet bike guy, and then charged in and almost killed him a little more.
Wait, was this the fridge captain? Was it a character jet bike?
No, this is the Dawn Eagle jet bike.
Yeah. He had the 5 up, feel no pain with 2 rerolls. Yeah, the fridge. Yep.
Yeah, I pushed him all the way down to 1 wound on the first.
Yep, that's
turn.
That's where he loves to live.
Yeah, well,
it's his best life there.
It didn't last very much longer. I think what Russ's major error is he pushed 1 flank really hard and then soft on the other flank. So my army's really fast. He just moved entirely over to the hard pushed flank and destroyed his cake.
Yep.
And then managed to walk the other way. On the flank where he went slower, I had to dump 18 bikes into just wrapping his dreadnoughts and holding them for most of the game, while I took out the rest of the table, though. So it was well worth the time. Those bikes are super difficult to kill.
Which dreadnoughts were these?
It was 1 with a spear and 1 with a sword shield. All Contemptors.
Yeah.
The Telemon didn't
like
engage fast enough. So
yeah, no, he needs to get the Telemon in there because the Telemon's flat 4 in combat. That's a big difference.
Regardless, it was the game was over very, very quick. Both of us had small numbers of units, moved very quickly. The major part of it is this list. All those bikes are OPSEC. That's the thing I was forgetting to say earlier. And having a unit that moves 20 inches is OBSEC and then shoots after that means that I'm going to, I zeroed him a couple times, kept him down to 10 a couple of times. I could just keep pushing the primary down. He only got 25 total in the game. And that makes a huge difference.
I have a question for you. Do you feel like if he understood what your bikes did, he could have effectively blocked you with the number of units he had, or were there just insufficient numbers?
In order to have blocked me, which I think would have been the right answer still, he would have been less aggressive, which would have played more into I had 2 the last and such.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I think over time, this says I can move one of the Coptas, shoot, and then move it again, and I can bring the other one out, shoot, and then take it off the table to come back next turn. So if he doesn't aggress, I just move forward, shoot 11 Death Copters at something, and then leave and say, like, okay, cool.
The
So I
matchup
pressed it.
dictates the tempo on him, is what
Yeah,
you're saying. Yeah,
for sure. I'd also
Okay.
the record trucks on top of that, right? Like I have a lot
Sure.
of.
No,
I can
you have
just
a lot
hide,
of pressure.
dump on you.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the problem is he can either try and be aggressive and hopefully he takes out a big enough chunk of you with his first bite that he can withstand whatever you come back at him with. But if he
Yeah.
doesn't, then he's swamped.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. That's what he did. On the last turn of the game, I got the Telemann down to 2.
Yeah, that's good.
Like that's throughout the entirety of the game. That's where we ended up. It's like I never killed all the custodes, so it was a great game. Lots of fun. Like I said, he's brand new to the scene. It'll probably take him a few tournaments to get under his, get everything ready and feeling good about it. But he seemed smart enough to sort of get through the process. I think he's going to be in good shape.
Do you want me to help you with Eleanor's list?
Sure.
All right. So you played Eleanor, who is just a person that you play now at tournaments, right?
Yeah. It was. We laughed because it'd been, I think, 2 whole games between last time we played each other.
So she has a Drukhari list. It's a real space raid. And it starts off with a Urgol, just an out of detachment one from Blackstone Fortress. Ancient Evil Archon, and then a Homunculus with Master Regenerist. Succubus with precision blows and the glaive and show stealer, and then some Kabalite warriors, 3 units of Rax, actually 4 units of Rax, 2 units of Incubi, 2 units of Mandrakes, 3 units of 5 Hellions, 2 Chronos, 4 Talos, 2 Raiders, and 2 Venoms. That is what she had. Chuck? Did we lose you?
I think we lost Chuck. He looks frozen.
Okay. Well, he's moving.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Now we can hear you. There was a long stutter there.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
So I was saying is, in this game, Nell's take on it was if she holds back, I'm just gonna pick her off over time and then engage. And I think that was correct. She definitely labeled. She went for I'm going to go first, and be able to take the board from you and then fight you from that position. I went first and punished pretty heavily for that decision. So the game was over pretty quick. I do think if she'd gone first, it would have been much better. Getting all those Talos up on the center objectives and stuff makes it much more difficult for me to interact with those. Mm-hmm. But that's just kind of the way it went.
Okay. And
third game.
Then you played Lee.
Yeah, I played against Lee. Lee's basically an expert at his list at this point. We were talking about it. He's like on almost 20 games in a row with it at this point. And it is very much your classic Ultramarines with lots of dreads. So
it is one model off from the Beams list that I played.
Yeah, was it? Which model?
I take 2 Redemptors, and he has 1 Redemptor and 3 Contemptors.
Did you have all the Infiltrators and Incursors for your troops as well?
That's where his points are. And then he doesn't have the Psyker.
So what he did with is all those troops are Phobos. So he has the ability to redeploy the Dreadnoughts around Ultramarine style, and then he has the ability to redeploy the troops with the Phobos. So he can almost entirely pick up his army and move it to somewhere else.
Yep.
Does he have the Phobos Librarian?
No, he doesn't have a librarian.
No.
Okay, no. That's it. I have to imagine that's an Abhor the Witch choice.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry,
possibly.
Go ahead.
So let's see. Let's go real quick. He's got 3 troop choices that can forward deploy, 2 Invictor Tactical Warsuits, a Redemptor, 3 Contemptors with Volkites, 2 squads of Suppressors, and 2 Lance Speeder Storms. We're all pretty familiar with this.
Yep.
The table that we sat down to play at had big round towers for its blocking terrain. That works great if you're going to hide 5 to 10 dudes on 32s or 28 millimeters. When you're trying to hide 9-man orc bike squads, there's no hiding. There was no way to build a deployment in such a fashion that there was going to be a place I could hide, particularly if you consider that you could pick up his army and move it somewhere else, right? So I just decided to push a flank and pushed him away from one flank into the other. And then when he was all deployed, my thought was I'll just run to the other side of the table. He'll be in a castle in the corner. I'll hold more objectives than he does for as long as I can. That's kind of how it went down. He went first. He picked up all of his Phobos units and put them into reserve, so that he could pop them down turn after turn to get recon and Rod. The plan worked. He hit me really hard on the first turn. I pushed out to, I spun around trying to make it into a hammer and anvil deployment, grabbed a bunch of objectives. I think I zeroed him on turn 1. Yeah, I sent a unit of bikes in and touched all of his objectives he was on and just shut everything
that's
down.
a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
Like zeroing someone is right up there with making someone super heavy fly off the table, or die.
I think it's the most dangerous thing you can do, though, because like if you're playing somebody who's really good and you zero them on the first turn,
oh no,
they
they're going to
sharpen up
everything.
so sharp.
Yeah,
right?
they're going to do everything next turn, 100%.
Yeah, they're going to go 100% on you. So it's almost like activating them a little bit.
That's fair.
But he shot me, which hurts a lot. Like his army is just very good at shooting. We all know about that. I lost a bunch of bikes. Lost some Death Coptas. And then this next turn, I did it again. I pushed him down to a 5. I don't remember exactly what it was. I made some small mistake in how I went to zero him and gave him a 5 instead. But it was just a small tactical error, not an overall. But I would have zeroed him again. But instead, he got a 5. Well, what kept happening is he's sneaking into weird angles and he's getting his rods, he's getting his engages. He's getting a lot of secondaries. Secondaries are very hard for me. I almost always can pick 2, and then the third one is like, well, this will be a fiber, right? That's why I have to push on the primary so hard. We did this round after round after round, and you can see his score goes from 0 to 5 to 10 to 10 as he sort of builds his way back into the game. Mine goes 10, 10, 5, 0. So you can see the deterioration of my army, and his army stays strong. His shooting stayed strong throughout. I don't think there was a way for me to engage his core of shooting. I had to play the game the way I did when I went second. Had I gone first, I know from playing with Russ at the beginning of the tournament, I could have driven all of my bikes right up in front of him and just shot all the Contemptors dead. His army would have then been able to charge into one unit of bikes to retaliate with that, and that bike unit would be dead, but then from there forward I'd be fine. So I really do feel like this was the one game that was a coin toss. I still think I'd rather be him than me on either side of that coin, but chances are whoever went first wins that game.
Okay. And then you played Paul.
Yeah, day 2.
Who we run into all the time.
Yeah, and I super love his lists. He also was responding to the new quarterly update. He was playing 3 Lord Discordants. What's the name of the Flawless Host? They're the ones who get more Death to the False Emperors, and since now you can Death to the False Emperor everything, those Lord Discordants churn through a lot of killing. He brought 3 of those, 3 squads of cultists to make that a battalion, and then he brought a Contorted Epitome, 2 Keepers of Secrets, 3 squads of 10 Demonettes, and 3 squads of 3 Fiends. So very typical rush, always strike first list, but a little bit new for Paul because it had the Lord Discordants in it. I deployed on my back line and let him come rushing at me. I handled the game, I think, very, very well. I've had lots of reps against Paul. He's always going to pull some combat trick that he's just so far ahead of me in skill there. There's always going to be something. This one I think was actually surprisingly simple. I charged my Always Strikes Last War Boss into his Keeper Secrets and the rest of my army a different direction. And I totally forgot that he could then interrupt because the 2 strikes, the first strike, the strike first, the strike last cancel each other completely, and then he's allowed to interrupt again. So between that and then having the -1 attack aura and then triggering the -1 attack strat, he was able to hold with his Keeper Secrets over in one corner while I fought in the other. That turned into this very long battle between all of my units on that side and his Keeper, and my War Boss fighting on death, killing his Keeper, making him re-roll the save to keep his Keeper being on 1, and then charging and then getting overwatched. It was just like we both poured most of our CP into that flank. trying to win out that particular scenario. But in the end, I was able to basically just kill most of his models and go from there.
And then more Drukhari for you.
Yeah, you want to do this one too?
Yeah, Jonathan Starks.
Yeah.
Also a real space raid. Also an ancient. So far we're very similar. We got a ancient evil Archon. We got Homunculus. We've got a Succubus. He looks like he likes precision blows. And the whip, which I can't blame him for that. I like competitive edge in the whip better, but whatever. Then 10 of the upgraded racks, and then 3 units of 10 Cabalite warriors that have, let's see, Dark Lance, Blaster each. Yep. And then a unit of 5 witches, a unit of 5 Hellions, 10 Hellions, 6 Talos, and 4 Raiders.
So we talked about this as one of my possible matchups and talked about it at lunch and decided that what I need to do is go hard on killing the Raiders so that I can kill all of that shooting. And then I can just hang with the Talos for the whole game, and I'm OBSEC and he's not. And I get to win. So the first thing I did going into the game was go first, run at him, and shoot the Talos as hard as I possibly could. I have no excuse for my behavior. After we're done, Alex is like, we just talked about this. I was like, I don't know. I think if I had stuck to the plan, it would have been much better. His shooting was very impressive, particularly over the course of the game. And then the Talos, they're a pit. Like I dumped tons of firepower into them. I dumped close combat into them. Twice, I got them down to 1. And then it got healed back up, so that was, like I had to kill a whole extra Talos. So I think about what people are talking about.
How did it get healed?
Homunculus?
Okay.
I think he healed it for 3. I don't know if that was a roll or if it was just a flat.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. You have to be very careful with the amount of effort it takes to kill those Talos and whether you decide to put that effort into something else. The rest of the army was very killable, and I think I made the wrong choice there. I can definitely see with that experience and the experience I had playing against Nels that when somebody goes, you know what, instead of having anything you can kill, it's all this -1 damage, super high toughness multi-wound models. It's going to be very difficult.
And we're going to talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, but I also want to point out, just shout out to Jonathan. Him and I, he's new to our area. Him and I have talked a little bit here and there, but getting to play a game with him, he's super sharp. It was a lot of fun. I'm excited to hook up and play another game in a tournament soon.
Excellent. So what do you think of your list?
I'm really excited about it. It's really fun to play. An army that almost entirely moves 20 inches every turn. It's great.
That sounds fun. It's like I don't play Xenos, but sounds really fun.
Yeah, it's very aggressive. What I like about it is it's fast and durable. I also do some shooting, right? Like there's some damage output, but mostly what I'm bringing, my 2 big skills are speed and durability.
And OBSEC.
Yeah, and a bunch of OBSEC, which, man, does it matter. I pulled so many shenanigans with that.
Well, when you have it, it matters. If opponents don't have it, it doesn't, right? It's such an interesting thing of it's this advantage that you only ever realize if you bother to bring it, and it's only going to be situational because if your opponent has an equal amount, then it's obviously important, but it's not going to feel as important.
Well, a lot of OBSEC is in troops.
Yep.
And what I do is I go ahead and point 108 strength 5 AP1s at them. And then my opponent doesn't have OBSEC. It really fixes it just like that.
Well, it just doesn't have object permanence anymore at that point.
Yeah,
it's really
no, that's how it works for
it. Is that just 1 unit of bikes?
Yeah, in the WA, yes.
That's hilarious.
It's amazing.
It takes a while. I actually had clock problems here and there because I only brought 45 dice.
Wow, rookie mistake. You need a bucket of 108 dice that only do that job every time, and you're like, "This is the bucket of pain. I'm gonna pour it out now."
They don't allow apps at the store for dice rolling, so I was not 100% prepared. But I will definitely come prepared next time because it's pretty straightforward roll.
I have the same problem, Chuck.
Yeah.
Termagants, I got the same issue.
Look at all these dice. What do I do?
Yeah.
Oh man, first codex problems here. Like no,
Yep.
no. Speaking about like the like lists, I was really pleased with mine. I expected an average of 85 points per game and 4-1, and that's exactly what I got. And I even called that. I'm like, I'm gonna get fourth, and I got fourth. I mean, to be fair, like if you're betting on me,
Statistically,
that
that's
is
easy for
the
you to call.
safe. Yeah, that's the safest one to bet on. But still, like I got a 79 and 80, a 79, a 76, a 92, a 97, and an 86 or something like that. It it was really cool to. It's like completing a recipe. I think I want to convey this to people. It's super satisfying to have worked on a list and gotten into the point where you can predict what it's going to do and how it's going to place.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need it to win the tournament for me to feel like, oh man, I really know how to play my list. And those are two separate feelings, and they don't have to be like, hey, I had to win the GT. It's like, no. I said this was a gatekeeper list, and it's a really good one, and I have proved that, and that's really satisfying in its own right, and that's sort of the hobby goal I set for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm super happy with my list. There are 3 pieces in it that I'm like meh on. Both of the wagons, they're overpriced. I could easily have swapped them for Wazbomb jets. And those do so much damage or take so much aggro that they're always going to be worth the time.
Oh, they're so good. Even just 2 is just amazing.
Yeah. And then to be perfectly honest, the Rekka trucks are, I'm not going to call them dead weight. I mean, they're great shooting, but I don't care if you hide behind something. I move 20 inches. People don't hide from my army. So I'm not super into the damage they do. They don't bring something that's special.
They're not solving a problem for you.
Yeah, they take up a lot of space in my deployment zone.
Okay, so you're gonna take 2. I'm not gonna say you're doing this, but you take two Waz bombs. What else? What is the other change?
I drop a few war bikes because 1 unit of war bikes is always just going to be a sacrifice. So that one might as well just be 5 strong because it can just as easily zero somebody at 5 as it can at 9.
Sure.
Take the Rekka trucks out, take the wagons out, put 2 Waz bombs in, put in 7 more Death Coptas.
Oh yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like until something changes, like they are just amazing.
The strat, I didn't read it properly, I guess, the first 7 times I read it for them. It's 1 CP going into combat. I roll a 4 up for every model in my unit. I don't even have to connect with you. 1 connects, and the whole unit gets to roll against you.
Mm-hmm.
Every 4 up does D3 mortals.
Oh, gross.
If I had played that properly against the Custodes,
oh yeah,
it'd just been oh, here's 1 CP, take 9.
So
Get off.
Thank you for helping me understand what my target priority should be.
Yeah, that stratagem sounds ridiculous.
It is. Yeah. I have no. There's no.
I am ridiculous.
It is. It's awful.
And this is from a unit of 9 helicopters.
6 helicopters.
Okay, so it's an average of 3d3 mortals.
It's 2 CP for more of them.
Yeah,
1
CP. 1 CP for 6 mortals.
Yeah,
that's a pretty good deal.
You can do it on a larger unit, right? For more CP.
You can only ever get 6 dice worth. But if you do it on Mega Tracks, on a 2+, it's D3, and on a 6, it's 2D3.
Ooh.
So it's even more, but you lose their already existing mortals. I think the 6-man Death Copters are the perfect place.
It sounds correct. Maybe 7, so that if they lose 1, you can still deliver.
But 6 is the most you can get.
Oh, okay.
But what I really like about them the most is that they fly. And orcs have traffic jam problems.
Yes,
and
they
even
do.
With the speed, we have traffic jam problems. But when half of my army flies, I don't have traffic jam problems.
That's great.
Actually, I give my opponents traffic jam problems. But here's 9 bikes in your deployment zone. Your turn.
Well, that goes back to the question I asked earlier about move blocking. Like, it really solves a lot of your issues.
Yeah, I don't have much of a move blocking problem.
No, you certainly won't after those changes with the Waz bombs.
Yeah, the Waz bombs are, I think, going to be wonderful because people have to kill them on the first turn, which means my Death Copters get to play.
There's a part of me that wants to lead you astray just out of self-preservation, but I'm a better person than that, I think. Hopefully.
It wouldn't work anyway.
That's fair. Like it'd be
I brought the
hollow.
buggies because I've been bringing WAS bombs to the last tournament, and I was like, I'm going to just do something different. And I think every game I was like, man, if I had the WAS bombs, this would have just been like a slam dunk.
Well, there you go.
So,
All right. Well, just if you guys are wondering, the winner of that tournament was Lucas with his melee orcs again.
Of course.
Yeah.
So
he was unstoppable, but he hasn't met me yet, so I'm excited to.
yep. And I'm very excited to play him. Like, I think that the Tyranids matchup with him is really interesting.
I think it's also people gets a chance to go check it out. Like his list has evolved some, and I think it's even more potent. So go check it out.
So just gonna put it out there. There is a different version. There's a night dance party, or maybe that's a night's ball. I don't know, but that involves, I think it's 8 of the Armiger model knights and 3 Telemon that I am looking at right now.
There you go. The Armigers got real good. They were already like the Chaos version with the 8 Armigers and like 2 knights or whatever.
Yeah.
Paying attention. That seems great. Nothing 18 Deathcopters can't solve though. So.
All right, so let's talk about the meta now. Basically, the quarterly update came out, and they said, "Hey, this is going to be quarterly," which we're all very excited about.
Woo!
That's a
yeah. That's probably the best news from the whole thing.
That's the best. That's the best news of 2021 for Warhammer 40K.
Well, that and them giving any sort of love to 8th Ed codexes, like those two things are just like that. Those are the
but only some of them.
Itches that but you have to assume that the ones that they didn't give anything to, we know 2 of those are getting a codex,
right.
So we can assume the other ones. I don't know. I mean,
right after it.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, for all we know, they could be all sitting on a ship outside of LA, and they're like, "Yeah, we're not gonna have guys to unload that till 2023." Like, it's just, oh.
So they said, "Hey, you know what? You can only have 2 planes," and I don't think any of us are going to complain about that. I think that we're all.
I mean, my 12 Valkyries complain a bit.
I think that's the complaint I've heard is from the Guard player and the Tau players, because it says you can have two Air Force models, not 2 units.
Oh.
So you can't do your Valkyries and the Forge World aircraft drone that came in squads of 9 or something like that. You're limited to 2 models.
Well, Tau players don't count. Their complaints are invalid. Apparently.
No, I'm
just going after forward. The universe.
I believe Tau players have been in jail long enough that we can give them a pass now.
Can we?
I think with their current rule set, it doesn't matter what you say about it.
I don't think as an active member of the Tau Illuminati conspiracy, I can support this.
All right.
Yeah, I could lose a seat or like standing or something, and yeah, no.
All right, so
I sold mine, but I still hope for them.
So they said only 2 planes, and then they said, "Hey, orcs, only 1 of each kind of buggy." Which is great news because it fixes what was the big bad at the time.
That is a screw you in particular, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like this one specific orc list that everyone's playing. We don't want that. Is really what it was.
Yeah. Hey, just
I like
you
that
know,
because it doesn't screw those buggies for everybody else. Like it doesn't screw the orc army. It only screws that.
No, I do like that every unit of those buggies is still viable, right? Like you just can't spam them, but they're still fine. Like they are all as good as they were. You can't hit a critical mass of them that is, Chima levels of cheese.
Exactly.
Well, we will see. There's going to be some people like you can if you do 3 Megatracks, 3 Rekka trucks, and 3 shock jumps, and a bunch of bikes in my list, and then 2 WAS bombs. You do freebooters. You shoot with all the buggies. They kill anything the WAS bombs shoot on 3s. Like, there's still some room. I know some people are going to be testing that, so I'm really looking forward to seeing how it goes down.
Yeah, that sounds awful. Stop it.
Yeah.
Well, it exists.
Mitch, I think you complaining about someone mathing someone off the table is really offensive.
It's sarcasm. Come on, guys. Like, when have I ever actually...
I don't know.
No.
I don't think it adds up.
I am happy to hear of multiple orc builds still. Like everyone Colin included,
Yep.
was like, hey, these units are the only thing propping up the Orc Codex. Now we have the new rules that buffed up some of those units and some other ones, and we're seeing entirely new combos. That's exciting. I'm all for it.
Yeah, it is. And then they said, AdMech, your stuff's more expensive.
Oh, no, yeah. They were like, hey, do you like being stepped on? Because we're going to do that, so you better get into it.
We would like to take 250 of your points and just take them away.
And I actually think that that is who GW thought was the biggest problem, based on the way it was handled. Because with Drukhari, they raised the stuff that everybody was taking, but they lowered stuff that some people were taking. And here's a secret: Drukhari players already knew that stuff was good, and then you made it cheaper.
No. That was totally by error. That has to have been like no. What happened there is they correctly identified what was in every AdMech list because like it was pretty straightforward, and then said, well, let's broaden that by about 15% of the units, and then we'll buff one unit, and that's good.
No, I was talking about Drukhari.
No. I'm saying what they did to AdMech versus what they did to Drukhari. Drukhari was they just didn't know. They were like, oh, these units aren't being taken as much. They must be. Oh no, everyone's taking them. What happened? Oh God.
Yeah. So
I feel like that's the reaction.
Like 8 months ago, or whatever, when the Codex came out, the Australian meta had this list. Thick City is what we're calling it, which is Chronos, Talos, and Grotesques, and it was good already. And then Anthony Vanilla took it to an RTT and said, yeah, this is pretty solid already, and then they made Grotesques and Talos cheaper. They made Chronos the tiniest bit more expensive, and they made Talos and Grotesques cheaper. So now, you have these lists that are just Grotesques, a Court of the Archon, Talos, and Chronos, and it basically deploys on the field, and then it just comes at you.
And it says, can you kill me?
And it says, can you kill me before I kill you? And it turns out for 90% of the game, the answer's no. And there isn't anything you can do about it. It's a massive DPS check.
So,
Yes?
Oh, no. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
You've interrupted me like 5 times on trying to explain this. No, go ahead. What's up?
Oh, no, I was going to say, if you listen very closely, you can hear a million Grey Knights, Dread Knights swords being snapped off for hammers. Because that's the only way Grey Knights can deal with them.
Oh, okay.
It's bad. It's bad for them.
Just so we're clear, it's 6 Talos and 6 Chronos. This is Anthony Vanilla's list. And then he has 5 Grotesques. And it just runs at you. That's just what it does. And the Austin the Austin Open, the GW tournament from this weekend, if you look at how the Drukhari did, like everyone pivoted immediately to this, and there was massive amounts of success with it. This is actually a real problem for the game now.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that it was created accidentally by GW, and I think that's kind of amusing. GW is just like, oh, we're nerfing Drukhari a lot. Let's make these couple things less expensive. Oh, dear God, what have we done? That's basically what happened. So, yeah. So those lists did incredibly well at Austin, and the other thing that did incredibly well was Tyranids. Tyranids are incredibly good, and it's hilarious that they're good because John Lennon was telling me about his tournament experience. I think he went 7-1. I think that's right. But he was telling me about his experience, and he's like, we're totally competitive, and I was in every game, and it was super fun, but also, my rules are so bad compared to everybody else's rules. I just had, like he was talking about how when you're playing against Grey Knights, or Orcs, or Drukhari, anything in their army has a better data sheet than anything in the Tyranid army, for a better price. Like, the Tyranids data sheets are still terrible, the army's still fragile, and it's still bad data sheets, it's still fragile, it just happens to have incredibly good stratagems and other shenanigans. 6-1-1 for John, I apologize. So there's 2 different approaches to this. There's the approach that Alex McDougall took to the the GGGT last 2 weekends ago, and what John is taking, which is basically what I've been playing, and it's like you take Gene Stealers and either 2 units of Termagants or 2 units of 5 Guard and then 1 unit of the other thing. You take GSC for blips, and that's basically your list with the Maliceptor and the Malanthrope. That list is incredibly tanky when it needs to be. The Hive Guard do ridiculous things. Termagants, math-wise, just math everything off the table pretty much, unless you've got a 2-up save, because they don't have AP. But what Manny said, and we knew this was coming, the Tyranid players were not oblivious to this. What Manny said is, what if the GW train's so great, what if I just take 18 Hive Guard? What if I just take 6 of the Leviathan Hive Guard so I give them all the buffs? And then I do another 12 of Kronos Hive Guard, and I'll make them +1 to hit. So we'll have 12 that are hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s. And then we'll have another 6, and then one of those will be exploding 6s.
Oh, I hadn't thought about the +1 to hit. That's great.
Oh, yeah. So you have 12 of them. One of those units has exploding 6s. All of them are hitting on 2s, rerolling 1. Then in the Leviathan one, you've got 6 Hive Guard that are Chapter Mastered, which is not significantly worse than hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s. And they're also exploding on 6s. And according to the people at the tournament, he could easily hide those 18 Hive Guard with the way GW terrain is. And so he just absolutely obliterated everyone until he got to the final round where Mr. Richard Sigler, who does not lose at GW events, he's just decided he doesn't want to.
No, those are his events. Like,
Yeah, he just has decided that he doesn't want to lose at them. And he brought Thick City, and he muscled the Tyranids basically.
They math checked each other, and he won this round.
Yeah, but it's very clear that Tyranids belong up in the top tier with everybody, based on what we're seeing. They didn't do particularly well at the GT Alex took them to. They didn't do particularly good at Warzone Atlanta. Both of those tournaments had non-standard terrain. At the GW event, the Tyranid players were doing great. 2 Tyranid players were in the top 4. 2 Drukhari players were in the top 4. I think that the major that we're all going to in 2 weeks, Mary Slaneschmus, which will be in Ocean Shores, Washington, December 3rd and 4th? 4th and 5th. December 4th and 5th. That will have really great terrain, and I'm going to take Tyranids, and I expect them to do incredibly well. And then the other approach that we haven't seen as much is Tyler Bortell's, where he's still running the barbed Hywardils, because now they can hit on 2s, which is really good for them. And he can just shoot a lot of armies off the table. Things like Drukhari and Orcs are just like, that's a lot of strength 8, 2 damage shooting. I don't like that. So that also is good. So Hive Guard are probably too good. How are they any different than they were before? They have gotten additional buffs, and it's easier to take more of them. What?
Right, that strat, the exploding 6s strat.
Yeah.
And all the different ways you can use it is just like that's a clear winner in my mind.
Yeah, that's
and reroll damage and like there's just it's just and right, like they also have this great little screen that can delete anything that isn't a Dread Knight just immediately. So there's a lot of factors there, but some of the best minds in the game are always playing Tyranids when they're good. So it's only going to get sharper from here.
And they are good. And they are probably too good. My real issue here isn't the Termagants. Now, if John Lennon's here and we say, John, what is the best thing in the list? Is it the Gene Stealers? Is it the Termagants? Is it the Hive Guard? The most of the meta would say it's the Hive Guard. That's what they would say. John would say that the Termagants are actually the most broken thing in the list. And the reason he would say that is because the amount of when you give them reroll hits and you tell them to explode on 6s, they get 2 additional hits on 6s. So they get 3 hits per 6. You can also make them +1 to hit. You can double fire them just like you can double fire the Hive Guard. There's a large portion of the game that just obliterates. When Chuck and I played, my Termagants basically wrecked his Waz bombs off the table by themselves on the first turn of the game. Like just the Termagants killed just the Waz bombs.
The other important part about that is those 30 bodies.
Yes.
End up mid-table. Well, and a lot of what the game is playing right now, you can't. That's not a quick thing to get rid of.
Right. It is for you.
That was what I was saying about the earlier, that it's this handy dandy screen that deletes anything. Like it does 2 amazingly important jobs, and it wants to be close to do the one. It wants to be close to do both of them. So like it's just synergistic. If there was a way to get a 30-man conscript squad to anywhere even half as close to as good as those Termagants are, I would be playing it.
Yeah, so they're incredibly good. But the problem with Tyranids is not them. The problem is Hive Guard. And I agree with John that when you play it, the Termagants feel like the most powerful tool. But the problem is the Hive Guard. And the reason they're a problem is GW made a decision. I believe they made a decision. I'm going to speak for them. I don't know what they actually were thinking. But I believe they made a decision to deprioritize indirect fire. They made Guard indirect fire more expensive. They made Tau indirect fire more expensive. They made Space Marine indirect fire more expensive. They basically said, we don't want people taking a ton of indirect fire. The problem is that Hive Guard, especially with redeploy, are so good that you can put them, especially on player-placed terrain, you can put them wherever you kind of want them to be. And if you're a competent Tyranids player, they're not going to die against, I would say, 90% of the field. They're just not going to. And I think that that's a real big problem for the game because the amount of damage they can do, like Marine players in particular should be mad about this because Marine bodies have no chance against Hive Guard. That's a big part of why the Demacaron list beat Marines so badly, is that while they were dealing with the Demacarons, the Termagants and the Hive Guard were killing all of the Marines. So I think Tyranids are a problem. I'm certainly excited about how good they are. I'm fairly confident that this is the last hurrah for double moving Gene Stealers. I just don't think, I have no idea. I don't know anything. But I don't think that they'll keep them in the game. It doesn't make sense for that with how much they've deprioritized double move. So I'm going to enjoy my super fast moving army while I have it, and I'm going to play it, and I'm going to play my 8th edition data sheets. I will explain the thing that I think explains the problem with the data sheets the best. If you've played against a competent player playing Tyranids, you probably have seen the really good at psychic power, 3 casts a turn, punches okay in combat, shoots a little bit, Flyrant. It was very good. We played it for a long time. That Flyrant compared to a Dread Knight. The Dread Knight is more durable. Because of its psychic powers, it is faster. It has significantly better shooting, and it is phenomenally better in combat. All of those things that are better, with that you also get it for 50 points cheaper. A Flyrant is 50 points more than a Dread Knight. 50 points. Why are we taking Termagants? Because they're 7 points. They're like the only thing in our book that is at all undercosted. Gene Stealers are 13 points. You know what else is 13 points? Witches are 10 points. You know what's better than a Gene Stealer? A Witch. So it's still the same problems that Tyranids have had. It's just that the additional tools are making them incredibly powerful. So that's a heck of a thing.
Well, I think it's also the really important thing that you hit on there is that because other indirect fire in the game is just not present in a way that can harm Hive Guard, they can kind of exist in this bubble of I can touch you, you're not going to touch me, unless you're bringing a specific Manticore with specific traits, and you have a plan to how to already wound the Hive Guard. At that point, you can kill 3. Cool. If they brought 18, have fun with that.
Yep.
You'll have killed most of them by the end of the game if you have anything left. But oh wait, you can't do that because you only get to shoot for 4 turns. So there's nothing that can really touch their output for what they're doing, and that is that additional layer that you were talking about of like how indirect fire has been deprioritized. That makes a big difference, and the ability to ignore AP 1 and 2. That's also the other half of it. Is just fundamental.
Yep.
Can they all ignore AP 1 and 2 all the time?
No, with the way Tyranids are now, only 1 unit will have it.
Okay.
And I might not even take it because the only army that even matters against is a Guard. It's the only one that matters, and I think I can table Guard without the Hive Guard. Sorry, Guard players. I know that they got buffed, but and I'm sure that buff helped them a lot. But they still can't do anything about Gene Stealers as touching their entire army. They still don't have that.
Oh no! You would have to take them with Dread Knights and Telemon or something.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But,
Manicore's in a soup list. Now that's scary. But I'm only expecting to see Manicores in a mono guard list, and I just feel like I'll dispute that because their rules aren't good enough. But like Ruckatrucks are AP 3 on the turns that matter, so it doesn't do anything against that. Plague Burst Crawlers are another thing that's indirect that we watch out for. You know what I don't care about? Death Guard. So like some of this is just like you don't need to keep the Hive Guard alive in those matchups. It's not actually that important. So yeah. that's what's going on with Tyranids and with Drukhari. And Chuck talked a bit about what's going on with Orcs. The other big bad right now is Grey Knights, and all the lists basically look the same. Mitch, how would you, if you were to explain to a new player why Grey Knights are so good, how would you explain that?
Okay,
what is it
sure.
about them that makes them good?
So they have the best vehicle in the game with the best profiles in the game at the moment.
For 50 points cheaper than a Flyman.
Before this, you could argue it was the Raider, or obviously the Admech Planes are in that conversation. The Skitari chickens. Like there are a lot of things that were undercosted. But right now, the Dread Knight is so clearly head and shoulders above everything else with a 2-up, 4-up invo. The 13 wounds, which is actually a really important quirk. Odd numbers matter with vehicles.
You've really forgotten Orcs really fast here.
What?
You just made a list of all of the vehicles that were like really good in the game.
Oh no, I was talking Imperium.
I
don't speak to anything I don't know, and that's just Imperium for me.
Like, we've been terrorizing with them.
Yeah, it's the worst problem.
No. But for the points, for what they are and for how many you can take, they participate in every single part of the game. If you want to have you have psychic powers, like I mean the amount of like just extra super smites you can just kind of pick up because you have a 5-up feel no pain and you're a giant vehicle. You don't really care about a wound here or there. Like, and you can just keep throwing dice. You move on to shooting. You can make them +1 to hit, +1 to wound, +1 damage on a target, which is insane. Like, you're talking about something that goes from wounding on 5s, with AP1 and then 1 damage, to doing 2 damage each. They're now wounding on 3s, and you can be hitting on 2s. And you can increase the range by 6, and you can like there's all of these synergies that just continually happen, but it's all built around Dread Knights, and then you use interceptors to fill the gaps and to go through the terrain where the Dread Knights can't easily access. They're your close combat butchers that clean up everything the Dread Knights can't easily reach. But the Dread Knights are the core of the list right now because they're just fundamentally undercosted for what they do.
Mm-hmm. And
I think
also Grey Knights are incredibly fast, which means there's a whole bunch of armies in the game that can't defend against the angles that they can get because they can.
Well, and they instantly go there. There's no way. Like if you make one mistake, they're like, "Cool, I'll exploit that now." Yeah. Oh, you made another mistake. Oh, that went my way. Cool, I'll exploit that now. Yep. Like they're the other part of it is they have a faction secondary where you can theoretically score 50 points with it.
15.
No, 50. Like I'm saying, the scoring potential over five turns is enough that like you can be like it's almost impossible not to get is the point. Like there's the only matchup where it's not a good take is possibly Mirror Match or Thousand Suns.
I think it's still worth it because you can do it more than once on an objective.
Absolutely. You get to you can burn through their denies until you have it. Like it's incredibly good and reliable, and that was the deciding factor in my game against Hank, is that he had that secondary and he knew he could get that 15 points. I'm like, well, I have to interact with you to get any points to just try and counteract that, and so that just gave him an immediate advantage, which is the way you should play the army. It's phenomenally good. If you're a Grey Knight player and you're not doing looking at your faction secondaries or looking at the fact that you can change your secondary after your opponent, you should be doing that math. It should just be habit at the beginning of every game. What are the points if it just plays out right now, static, nothing dies, and then work from there for whether you should be aggressive or defensive, because it really matters with such an elite army.
I think, at least from my perspective, looking at the Grey Knight list, the thing that bothers me, as an opponent up against it, that makes me really concerned about the match, is it's no matter where it is, no matter how you deployed it, no matter how defensive you are with it, I'm in danger.
Yep.
And if I screen, you'll be able to probably pick that screen up without putting yourself in danger. You immediately put me in this, I have to act, I have to cross the table, I have to come to you perspective.
They love to dictate tempo. Yeah.
And that is I don't know if there's a way around it. You just kind of have to embrace that and be like, okay, we gotta go for it.
Only infantry can do the secondary thing, right?
No.
No, it's a
Any-
psychic action.
Any psychic, yeah. So that
Okay.
the Dread Knights can do it too.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the problem. What I would like to see from a like a faction secondary like this, where it's so reliant on something your army is obviously really good at, um, is to limit the number of points you can score, like to 10 to 12, something like that, where it's not a full 15.
Hmm.
Where because you're trading off that consistency, that knowledge that I'm going to get these points for the limited amount of points you can get. Whereas if you want to take a little more risk, you can get maybe a few more points, which might be the difference, right? So I'd like there's just not enough of a trade-off there because it's just an auto for them. Like I had a lot of ways to interfere with his cast, and I was able to against Hank. And actually, it won me the game against Noah. I was able to disrupt enough of them where I limited him to only getting like 2 points per turn. I think 3 turns in a row, and that was game winning for me. But it's very hard to do, and I had to spend my command points on it. And like if any one of those don't go my way, all of a sudden I'm losing that game. So it's super consistent.
Mm-hmm. So, here's my take. Quarterly updates is great, and the changes they made in the balance patch, other than making anything in the Drukhari book cheaper, which there was no reason to do that. We've known the Drukhari players have known that our book is full of good stuff for a long time. Like just because everyone was taking the same stuff doesn't mean we didn't all acknowledge that other things were good as well. Anyways. I was trying to convince myself to take Talos before they went down in price. Anyways, other than making Drukhari cheaper, I think that the balance update was great. I think that the quarterly updates is great. I still think that the game is in a state that I don't care for, and it's only because all year we've had this have and have not situation. And I know that in the past that's been a thing, but as someone who's been playing competitive 40k for like 5 years now, maybe it's 6 years now, to me, it's worse now than it normally is. When I'm thinking about going to a tournament, if I want to be competitive, like I want to have a chance to win the event, the number of things I can take is incredibly tiny. For the major in 2 weeks, even though I'm a very good player that will do well no matter what I take, if I want to have a chance to win the major, I believe I have to take Grey Knights, Drukhari, Orcs, or Tyranids. I believe I have to take one of those 4 things. I've thought about it a lot. I'm not sure what the 5th thing would be. That's where I'm at on it. And I don't actually care for that because there's a bunch of armies that have been completely ignored. Tau, Guard, Craft-Drilled Eldar, Harlequins. There's lots of stuff that just isn't competitive right now. And we're getting campaign books and all this other stuff, and we're not getting rules for people's giant collections, to be perfectly honest. So I think that they're headed in the right direction. I still don't like the meta where we're at, but I'll let you guys disagree with me if you think I'm off base on that, or share your thoughts on where we're at for a healthy meta.
I think we're actually in a place where the game is more fun. They took the armies that destroy people right out the gate and pushed them down. I don't actually mind a higher win percentage. I don't mind if an army gets up to a 60% win percentage. It does mean that, like, if you want to be absolutely serious, you need to look at playing that or playing against it, right? Like, it's defining. But we got away from, I set up my models, you go, you take all of my models off the table.
Uh-huh.
So I can go and play a GT for the weekend and know that I will get 5 games in. And to me, that was the biggest problem. And they fixed that with the first one. So I'm happy to go and play, even if I feel like I'm in a pretty good space to get my 4 and 1s and my 3 and 2s. But that's on me not having the time to practice or put the effort in. But I know that I can go and expect to get to play 40k. I really didn't like the game when I would show up and freebooters would kill me, and then I would just get to go to lunch 2 hours early and have a 3-hour break. Like, that's not what I signed up for the day. So to me, this fixed not a balance issue. It fixed a fun problem.
Okay.
So I think that, to me, that's what the real win here is.
Someone says unless you play against 18 Hive Guard.
I haven't experienced that one yet. I don't want to be too sure of it, but yeah, that doesn't sound great.
Yeah. All right. So
I would
what do you
say
think,
I would say that the game, like, we say, oh well, there's like to feel like you have a great chance of winning at a major tournament, you have to take one of the four best armies. I mean, I think that's generally true in a meta. We have a lot of A+ armies. We have a lot of armies that like AdMech are still good. Like I'm actually looking forward to playing them now because I can do it and not feel bad. Um, like there's a lot of stuff that is still like totally like if you have a good run, you can do well.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to win the tournament like or feel like you're in the running every time? Probably not. Like if you're bringing a pack or pack plus, but you can still, if you dodge a couple matchups, like you can have a good run. And I think that that's the minimum threshold we need to have, for 40K is that the people who are committed to the scene and committed to playing, an army, you know, that is at least, where they know where it is in the meta, they can have a predictable result and feel like they have that chance. What happened with some of the armies we've had recently is that you show up and it's like, oh, I'm done. Like, cool. Like you didn't even have
see.
to.
I think that there's a lot of armies that are still in that boat, and it's big armies that people obsessively play. We've got a guard player on our team that plays the heck out of it and works his ass off and tells us. And then here's the list of armies that if I deploy against, I don't get to have a game. And I don't think that changed with the. I think you guys are right that you're right that if I just say there's four lists, there's four armies that are the haves. You're right. I think the bigger issue is the death of the middle class. Right? I think that's actually what's wrong. It's not that we have good lists and then a bunch of competent stuff. There is stuff that has nothing and that are big parts of 40K, and then there's about people who have lots, and then there's people that have a lot, not lots, but a lot. So like there's two tiers of really great, and then this giant gap, and then a bunch of armies that just aren't competitive. And if that list of armies that wasn't competitive was one or two books, okay. It's huge parts of the game. They're prioritizing stuff in a really weird manner that leaves people like Tau, Guard, and Craftworld Eldar ignored, which are three of like the most obsessive fan bases. And Tyranids got Arctarius, so they've got something, but their book's not been announced or anything. So, yeah. That's what I think is. I think that there's this massive gap, this just massive gap between the haves and the have-nots, and the have-nots aren't getting rules fast enough because we're delayed again, right? They can't get rules out.
I would say that a lot of the have-nots did just get a bunch of new rules to try and experiment with. I know that Peter and I had a long conversation about all the new implications of the guard changes, and it turns out that you can create like the ultimate like exploding Stormlord if you load a bunch of the Trojan, or not Trojan. Oh man, I'm blanking on the name now. But the little Cyclops. If you can load 3 Cyclops in it, and then they get to shoot out while like from the firing deck, but they hit the Stormlord as well. It's hilarious. So it kills itself, but it hits everything within 6 inches with a bunch of Strength 9 AP4 nonsense. Mm-hmm. So like it created I feel like there's new creative space for armies that aren't getting new rules right now, and that does suck, but it feels like they're trying to address that, and they're trying to find ways to re-engage with those players, and hopefully with obviously we're still seeing like supply chain issues with the custodes and GSC decks getting pushed back. That's super disappointing. I was hoping they'd be out by before LVO, so we could like really see the new custodes like in a large data set.
Those supply chain issues, sure.
Yeah.
But the books that are out so far have 2 books already. So
for sure.
I don't accept that.
Okay.
Everybody could have their codex based on the number of books that GW shipped. They chose to part out our codexes into multiple books and put them next to each other. I think that mistake right there is the only thing that makes 9th edition bad. Is that one merchandising error?
Yeah, like
right.
Here's more stuff for everyone who already has new rules, while we ignore the people that don't have them.
And I don't think that's never going to go well. It's like instead of getting dinged once every time somebody's new codex comes out and they have something cooler than you, it's like twice, but that second one hits even harder. So I think that's where all those feelings are actually coming from.
Remember
is
when
that people are just
fair.
Remember when
They
they did
watch
that with Marines? Marines had
Yeah.
new rules like every 2 weeks for like 3 months, and I didn't play Marines at the time, and it made me belligerently mad. Like they were already good, and then it was more and more and more. It's just the way that GW ends up releasing things, right? It's just the way that it works out.
I think part of it is well, I mean, with the Space Marine Codex or with Space Marine issue, that was an update. They were updating the entire line, and there's lots of creative ways they could have done that narratively, but they chose to just do it all. They could have. Yeah,
I think it's natural for anybody who has to wait through the 7th Space Marine book.
Oh yeah,
to be
no,
like,
I'm not arguing.
Could I get a book and play?
Yeah.
And I think that's the real mistake, and I think they probably heard that. Like I don't think they're blind to it, so I think it'll be better.
It's just the people that like Mitch. Your defense of the quarterly update not helping Tau and Craft World Eldar. Let's just focus on those two. Huge collection, huge fan bases, big selling products. One of the local store owners here that's a friend of mine says that Craft World Eldar sells second to Space Marines. It's the second hottest selling product line. Okay. You're giving them the benefit of the doubt. You're saying they didn't fix those things, so those must be codexes soon. And I'm saying it's a quarterly update, and we're not going to see any of those books between now and the next quarterly update. Because they just told us the Custodes and GSC are now quarter one. Well, quarter one is when the next quarterly update happens. So we can give them the benefit of the doubt. That's fine. But if I'm a Craft World Eldar player or a Tau player, I'm really frustrated right now, frankly.
So I'm not entirely sure the rules that we got are the same scope as what the quarterly updates will intend to be. I don't know that they're trying to hand out that level of faction update every time.
I certainly hope they are until they get all the books out.
I would like that. I'd like to see them continually tune. I'd like to see them be like, hey, all these units that clearly no one is taking, like there's a whole list of units you can find for the game that no one takes in any army ever. Just buff those. Like just make new models interesting. You don't have to rejuvenate a faction through like, hey, like X, Y, and Z is what we've done before. Let's make all those exactly good again. Give us just new units for those factions, new points discounts, new changes. Like I love the Necron changes for core. Do that with other codexes. Experiment more.
I actually think the Necron changes are the most successful changes in the whole thing, because they made that book far more interesting.
Oh, absolutely.
With one small change, and it was a change that was requested by their community. Like, I think it's just a win all the way around.
No, well, and this goes back to what we've always talked about of like the equation of the game has to change for people to not get bored with it. You have to have something new to solve continually, and I think that this is a great way to inject that in. And I think that there is I can't say whether or not Games Workshop has this viewpoint, but I feels like to me there's some sort of like dogmatic, if we give them rules for free, why would they want to buy the ones we sell them? And it's like, no. If you keep giving me the free rules, that's what keeps me hooked in. That's what keeps me engaged with the army, that you're not giving me rules I can pay for right now. You're saying, hey, your stuff's on its way. Here's a new set of like ways to try and solve the game. And that is a really important thing to keep people engaged in. And I hope that we will continue to see that.
I think that GW really doesn't understand how quickly I buy Craft World Eldar models when they're good. I think that they're really missing out just alone on how much I'm willing to spend. When I was playing Eldar, I felt like I was constantly going to the store, just constantly buying more and more models. Anyways. Okay, so I think that wraps us up. We will be back we'll probably be back after Mary Slaneshmas to talk about that. Will probably be our next episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's just good games out of that.
Yeah.
I believe we've all actually said what we're taking. I'm absolutely taking Tyranids. I don't care if people are going to build against me. I love Tyranids. I'm going to go. I'm not going to have any time to practice. So I'm just going to go. I'm going to hopefully go 5-1. If I win, great. 4-2, okay. But I'm just going to go play Tyranids. It's going to be a great time. What are you going to do, Chuck?
Oh, I'm going to move 20 inches and shoot orcs speed 1 all the time. Bikes and Defcopters, good to go.
Okay. Mitch?
Oh, it'll be some sort of dance party, whether it'll be more of like a rave vibe or like a more classical ball with Imperial Knights. I don't know, but we'll figure it out.
All right.
But big stompy robots of some sort.
Okay.
There will be between 9 and 12 models,
Well,
and they will be very difficult to kill.
plus their Scion friends, most likely.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Maybe a Manicore or two.
So we will come back after the major. If somebody interesting wins, we'll also grab them as well. If Lucas wins again, we're not interviewing Lucas again. We just interviewed him. In fact, Lucas is my pick. I'm saying that Lucas is going to win Mary Slanesh. That's what I'm saying. So we'll see if I'm right.
If you can keep dodging me, maybe.
Yeah, right. All right, guys, that was fun. Let's do that again soon. Thank you, everybody. Remember, if you want to come join the community that is the best community in 40K, it's the BiffPod Discord, and you can join that for $5 a month at our Patreon group, patreon.com/BiffPod. We spend literally no money on ourselves. It's all spent on the show. Check us out at Twitch, twitch.tv/BiffPod. YouTube, we're Best in Faction. You can find us in both places. And we would really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe, because that does help us out. So with that, we will be back in a few weeks. Thanks, everybody. We love doing this. Hope you guys enjoyed. Bye now.
All right. See y'all then.
Bye.